backhand and flush over the top of Kepnang.
Pullback, step back three, bottom!
Mavericks, it's short, tip back in, Weaver got it! Yes!
Neely, the handoff, Jones for the tie!
Oh, he's fouled! And one!
Presents itself is what you gotta take. You can't.
It's knocked away, still loose. Doherty the heave. Oh my God!
Welcome to the Straight Outta WAC podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is late on this Saturday evening. Southern Utah, UTRGV just got done on ESPN Plus. If you've been watching that, 79-59 for Southern Utah over the Vaqueros, big time game. Zion Young had 20 points for the T-Birds, who shot 46% from the field. They held UTRGV to just 26.9% from the field. So, welcome in on this Saturday night. I want to play a clip here. We're going to show it. I should have done it this other way. Let me pull it up here. Let's see if I can get it to work. I'm going to upload it real quick because it's a very important topic that we're going to talk about. Daryl's going to join me here in just a second, but we're going to play this video clip as soon as it's done uploading. So take a look.
They roll the ball out, and Schumacher will jog it across the timeline. 15 seconds to play. Udrogo's matched up with a speedy guard. Great screen, spin move, layup, he missed it. Williamson fights for the board. His putback is good. And the foul was...
That was Kobe Williamson with the offensive board. That was a pretty nifty spin move by Alex Schumacher, though, to get the open look. But Kobe Williamson, I think he's played in like 107 games, I think is what I heard Braden, or maybe it's more than that, what I heard Braden Bell say after that moment. But he knocks down the free throw. Seattle U escapes Riverside with a 61-60 win. CBU didn't hit a field goal over the last 4 minutes of that ball game. Seattle U escapes in another wild one between the Lancers and the Redhawks. Daryl, I'm going to bring you in now. Daryl Trujillo. We haven't been on one of these for a while, but some wild finishes today around the WAC.
Yeah, we had that one in Riverside. We had UTRGV in Southern Utah on the women's side going overtime. Yeah.
And then we had a couple blowouts. We had on the men's side, we had 3 blowouts today. UT Arlington went into St. George, came out with a 21-point victory. I was just looking at the stats. I don't even know why I didn't pay attention to this. Dejuan Gordon had 15 points and 17 rebounds in that win for the Mavs. I want to say they went into Cedar City and Southern Utah, came out with a pair of double-digit wins, like the blowout wins, not even close. And I want to say that they saw the power rankings that I put out this week and probably weren't real happy. Whoever's watching this, leave it in the comments what you think was the driver behind the Mavs doing what they did in Southern Utah this weekend. You can comment. We will see your comments and we'll share them as we answer them. If you're here joining us, we're starting a new thing here, the Straight Outta WAC After Hours, where we get together after hours and talk about the day, right, around the Western Athletic Conference. We haven't done a live show in quite a bit. I've been busy. Daryl's been busy. He keeps asking me if we're going to do one, and I keep putting it off, so that's my fault. Blame me for the lack of live streams. But anyways, so I was at GCU and Utah Valley today. First time I got to see Grand Canyon in person live. And they are as advertised. They're big on the guard line. Gabe McLaughlin looks like he's bigger and stronger than he was a year ago. Duke Brennan is just a big body in the paint that offers some rim protection and can rebound. And then now they get bench production from Luke Wurr. Here's the thing, Daryl, and you've seen this over the last little bit. People have complained about GCU getting all the calls down the stretch of ball games. I'm here to tell you that they don't. They play a different style down the stretch where they attack the rim. I saw Tylen Grant Foster get downhill multiple times, and he didn't get fouls called on him, even though he probably could have. But he went in hard looking for a bucket or a foul. One of the two was going to happen. Sometimes it didn't. But, they just play differently down the stretch than other teams do, it feels like, where they attack. And that's what happened, especially down the stretch. That's why they got to the free throw line a little bit more down the stretch in this ball game. But they attack. They don't settle. They don't sit back, and they take the game to other teams. And that's what I saw today against Utah Valley. I don't know if you watched that game, but that's just what I saw. And people can comment on this, share your thoughts, what you see. Yeah, it's just one of those things.
And as a former official, for those folks that in Nacogdoches that blame the refs for those 2 losses to CVU and GCU, I'm sorry, but the coordinators do not care who wins games. The coordinators care that their games are being worked at the best level they can be worked by the available pool of officials. Now,
I will say this though. Gabe McLaughlin should have been called for a foul. We're not going to deny that. Gabe McLaughlin on that last play against SFA 2 weeks ago should have been called for foul. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You see where his left arm was.
Oh yeah, no argument on that one.
Now, the thing is though, is I don't even want to get into the officials. I mean, they called a pretty good game today. It was just a matter of one, GCU shot 54% in the second half. They were a perfect 6 of 6 from 3-point land. And they attacked and got to the free throw line. That was the difference in the second half of that 19-point win over Utah Valley. I mean, they held Utah Valley without a field goal over the final 3:27. It was a free throw shooting contest down the stretch. They are good. And if they're going to get production from Luke Wurr off the bench like they did today and like they did the other night against Seattle U, they're going to be extremely difficult. No, I shouldn't say they're going to be. They already are extremely difficult to beat, but it's going to make them even more dangerous, especially when they get into March. And if they get into the NCAA tournament, it could create a lot of problems. So I was very impressed with GCU today. Utah Valley hung around for a little bit, but ultimately the better team obviously won the game today. And I came away impressed in my first live look at the Grand Canyon men's basketball team.
Are we coming up at the point now, Kyle, where the 1 seed is almost locked up?
Oh, it's already locked. It's been locked for 3 weeks.
By standing?
There is just no way that anybody can catch GCU in the seeding system. Not a chance. So as soon as GCU clinches the spot in WAC Vegas, which could happen next Saturday, depending on what happens Thursday with some teams. GCU is at 11-1, so that means they have 6 games left, and they have let's look at it here. Utah Valley, Utah Tech, and Southern Utah and Abilene Christian would all have to win out. The problem is Utah Valley plays Southern Utah, so one of those teams is going to lose. Utah Tech plays Southern Utah next Thursday, where I will be at Burns Arena. So one of those teams will lose. And UTRGV is too far behind, so they can't catch Grand Canyon. So Abilene Christian has 8 games to play, but they have to win out. So, and they play GCU as well. So next Saturday, maybe even Thursday, GCU could clinch its spot in WAC Vegas depending on what happens with some outcomes. So, they've already got the 1 seed locked up. When you look at the resume seeding system, they are 6.5 points, up over Tarleton right now. And there's just no way that they would have to lose all 6 of their remaining games to even make it close between them and Tarleton and that would mean Tarleton wouldn't be able to lose a game down the stretch. So the 1 seed's pretty much locked up, everybody, for WAC Vegas once GCU clinches their spot at WAC Vegas next week. So that's out of discussion. Now we're all paying attention to who's going to get into WAC Vegas, right, Daryl? Because, on the men's side, I have 4 teams that are 3 teams that are 4-7 now. And then you have Abilene Christian, who's 3-7. And then you have UTRGV, who's 2-9. So which one? Utah Valley, Southern Utah, Utah Tech, Abilene Christian, UTRGV. Here's a crazy thought for you, Daryl. How crazy would it be if 2 Utah teams didn't make it to WAC Vegas? Whether that be Utah Tech, Southern Utah, or Utah Valley.
It's crazy because, those 3 fan bases are basically the closest to the tournament when you exclude CBU.
Yeah.
So that means the gate's going to take a heck of a hit.
Well, then think about this too. What if the Southern Utah and Utah Valley women don't make it to WAC Vegas?
Again, the same.
Because they're both right there in that mix, on the cusp right there too. Sorry, guys. My wife is giving my son a bath right now, so you might hear water running. I apologize. It's late at night. He's not feeling great, so forgive me if you hear that water run. Anyways, go ahead.
It's the same issue. The gate's going to take a heck of a hit if the two or three closest fan bases don't get their teams in. But it is what it is. Those teams just haven't been up to par this year. Southern Utah seems to be putting things together down the stretch with a nice win today at UTRGV in overtime.
Yep. Yeah, and then the Southern Utah men had a 20-point win tonight to kind of elevate them. It's crazy. I was talking with Ken Pomeroy today. He was sitting next to me at the GCU Utah Valley game. And it is Ken Pom, not Kem Pom. I had to give Utah Valley a little, I don't know what you want to call it, a hard time about the name tag. But anyways, we were talking about that, and now I lost my train of thought. I really did.
We're talking about the race for the 8.
Yeah, how we're going to be talking more about that race for 6, 7, and 8, or the final 8, the 8th team to get to WAC Vegas over talking about the top part of the conference because, well, GCU men are going to lock it up. And then on the women's side, you got a 3-way race for first, and then you got a mess for that 8th spot at WAC Vegas. So it's kind of crazy what's going on, and I'm here for it. Like, it's going to be fun. I feel bad for the teams that aren't going to go to WAC Vegas because if you're out with like 2 weeks to go, 2.5 weeks to go, what are you going to do? Are you going to go play your games? Are you not going to play your games? Are you going to, throw in the towel? Anyways, those are thoughts for another episode of Straight Outta WAC. We'll do that, as we get closer to it. But let's talk about some of these women's games. You saw CBU beat Seattle U up there in the Red Hawk Center. They're without Chloe Lemon, who was in a boot, as Daryl noted. I did text Jared Olson this evening. He said he hopes to have her back soon, hopes to have her back at least by February 17th when they host GCU in a big-time matchup for first place. But, Daryl, take it away. Tell us about that CBU Seattle U game. Chloe Webb is unreal right now, and she might have, depending on what the Lancers do the rest of the way, she might have solidified that Player of the Year. I don't know, put herself atop that Player of the Year list with that performance today.
Yeah, another double-double for Webb, 33 and 10, I believe it was. Her and Philippa Barros combined for almost 60 points in that win, where the Lancers struggled from three-point distance, but still figured out a way to get it done against Seattle, who again hung around with a top team in the conference for 2.5-ish, 3.5-ish quarters. So they're right there on the cusp of being able to break through, and that's not a one-win team. I mean, I know the record says it, but when you watch them, they're better than a one-win team. And the Red Hawks are hitting a favorable part of the schedule now. They've finished with the top 2 of the top 3 teams in CBU and GCU this week. So they could string some wins together on the back end and make their way into that race for the 8, but they got to start winning soon, or they're at the point now where I don't even think if they don't win 2 this week, they're done in terms of the race for Vegas.
Sorry, I'm watching this New Mexico State Jacksonville State game. There's a little under 6 minutes left, and they're fixing something on the backboard, so I don't know what's going on there. But anyways, yeah, I think you're right. Seattle U, Skylar Young's done some wonders for that team, even though they've only won one WAC game. They're there. They just have to finish a game, right? I mean, they had it against GCU down there in Phoenix, and they hung around with CBU tonight at home, so they've been in ball games. They just haven't learned how to finish them. And I think once they get to that point where they're finishing ball games, they're going to be very good. I just don't know if that's going to happen this year. So we'll see what happens with the Red Hawks. But talk about CBU. I mean, Jared Olson, the Lancers, they're right in the mix for the regular season title. That seems to be a norm for Jared Olson's Lancers. They're 19-1 or 9-1 WAC play, 17-2 overall. They've won 4 straight. And they're doing it without Grace Schmidt, which seems to be even more impressive, right?
Yeah, I mean, going into that SFA game, my biggest worry was how the Lancers would hold up in the paint without Grace Schmidt against Kirsten Harden and Trinity Moore, and it seems like they more than held their own. And the post scoring, Kinsley Barrington has taken up a lot of the post scoring left behind. And Jared Olson runs Chloe Webb down on the block. She's picked up a bunch of it too. So it seems like the Lancers aren't hurting for points and, defensive presence down low. And in this conference, you have to have a big defensive presence down on the block. Now, I will say this. We flash forward to that CBU-GCU matchup. Watch that post matchup between the Lancer Bigs and Olivia Lane. That could be a really big part of who wins that game. But sticking with what happened today, shout out Brianna Gillen, another triple-double in Utah Tech's win at the College Park Center over UT Arlington.
Yeah, so I have a thought on that. I have a very interesting thought on that, to be honest. So sidelines, SSA, UTA, I think that's what the account is. They tweeted out today at sidelines-UT Arlington, and I don't know if they're watching or not. They might be, but they tweeted out after the first quarter. It was a picture of the scoreboard at College Park Center. It said, "Woo, great start by your UTA Mavs, win basketball, 1 down, 3 to go. 14 3-pointers toss up so far. UTA easily keeping pace, shooting 67% versus Utah Tech's 25%. So this account, and then, obviously UT Arlington ended up losing the ball game. This account also tweeted out something when UT Arlington was up 9 against GCU last week. It said something like, this is happening, something like that, some kind of tweet like that. And UT Arlington ended up losing that game to GCU. And so I think maybe that account shouldn't tweet out things like that because you maybe have jinxed your teams twice now. I'm just saying. Okay, so just be careful with that. But Utah Tech's all kinds of banged up. They got Brianna Gillen back this week for the UTRGV game, which they won. And then they went into UT Arlington, got a big win because Shrika Wright's team has been playing really well. The only time they've lost in the past 2 months was when I was in Edinburgh. They were in Edinburgh. I was covering the game, and they lost to Lane Lord's UTRGV Vaqueros. I don't know that Shrika Wright will ever let me come back to a game for the Mavs, but this Utah Tech team with the Warren sisters playing the way they are, getting Brianna Gillen back. Maybe JD Gustin's crew has some flow now. They play Southern Utah on Thursday. So I don't know. JD Gustin's team is pretty darn good.
Yeah, they're clicking now, and let's not forget, before we get to that February 17th game, Utah Tech makes the trip to Riverside next Saturday.
Yeah,
in the middle of all rainstorms, nonetheless.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting ball game. Two teams like to throw up a lot of threes and play fast tempo. That's going to be a wild game.
Well, I saw the first game, and that was wild enough.
Let's take a look at Brianna Gillen's triple-double here. What does she have? 14 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. She didn't hit a three-pointer either to get to 14 points. Maddie Warren had 25 points, 8 rebounds. The thing with the Trailblazers right now, their starters are playing, at least 4 of their 5 starters are playing 30-plus minutes. Maddie Warren played 36. Brianna Gillen played 39. Macy Warren played 38. Kaylin Dallas played 33. They don't have a ton of depth with Amber Carson not playing, with Emily Isaacson not playing. His bench is really depleted right now, so you got to keep an eye on that. Avery Brittingham had another double-double with 13 points, 13 rebounds. She had 6 assists too, so she was kind of on triple-double watch, but it was the second half that really did the I shouldn't say the second half. It was the second quarter that really did the Mavs in. They were 3 of 16 from the field. So my guy Spencer McLaughlin is calling. I don't know why he's calling me when I'm on this broadcast. I don't know if he texts me or not. Maybe I'll have him get on if he can. But let's keep talking. Let's keep talking about some of these women's games, Daryl. If anybody's listening, comment on the show, comment on the YouTube stream, wherever you're watching, and let's hear your questions so we can answer those as we're on this live broadcast.
Utah GCU grinded out a 14-point win over Utah Valley in Phoenix this afternoon. Not the best offensive showing in terms of the box score for the Lopes, who seem to be struggling from the perimeter. They're hitting that mid-season, three-point shooting blues kind of thing, but they're finding ways to win. Dan Nielsen's team is, again, hanging around with the upper half of the conference. And in that race for the 8, if somebody can knock off a team at the top, that's going to make their case even better. Utah Tech, with that win today, gives themselves a game lead in over UT Arlington in that race for 4 and a first-round bye, which, Kyle, you alluded to.
Let's take a look at it right now, just to be sure, because remember, the seeding for WAC Vegas isn't dependent on the standings. So as of today, let me look here. This hasn't been updated. This was updated yesterday. So UT Arlington was still ahead by 1.05 points over Utah Tech for that 4 spot. So that means that UT Arlington will still be in that 4 spot if we were to start WAC Vegas today. So, I'm going to bring in Spencer McLaughlin. He is walking home or driving home from the AFEC after Southern Utah's win over UTRGV. So we'll bring in Spencer McLaughlin, buddy. He just called me. And let's talk some hoops, bud. That was a good game to call.
Yeah, well, it was a good first half to call, I would say. Because here's how that game played out. Southern Utah played great. I mean, like, from the jump, they had a concerted effort. And you're right, I am just getting into my car. But they made a concerted effort. Look at me improving my lighting. And
there you go.
To really come out with a lot of energy at the start, because that was something they didn't do on Thursday. They were very flat. And Coach Jeter was really disappointed because, there was a good crowd at the AFEC on Thursday, and there was another good crowd tonight. And, he felt that, they'd let the fans down, not because of the loss, but because of the effort that they put forth, the way that it looked, and I think they came out a team on a mission tonight. They were kind of sloppy in the early going, but then they started hitting shots. Zion Young had all 20 points in the first half, and it was a thrilling first half to call. I got to dive deep into the vocab because there were so many made shots, and I love doing that as a play-by-play guy. But then in the second half, man, everybody just kind of let up because Southern Utah was beating them so badly. It was a 20-point lead at the break. It was, I think, 48-28 at the half. And then Southern Utah comes out and goes on a 5-0 run in about 60 seconds. And then if you watch the game, the energy kind of, deflated from there. They picked it up a little bit at the end. They got an underrated, I think, boost at the end from Cade Brazier, a walk-on who joined the team just a couple of weeks ago. And Parker Haney, my analyst, was talking with me about that on the broadcast about how, when you play a second half the way they did, they were struggling offensively. They were just, they knew they were going to win. They had a lead that was just insurmountable at that point. Once it was, 23 with 14 minutes to go. And once it got to that point, if you let that energy carry you to the end of the game, that can almost feel like a loss.
Yeah.
Because it was negative, but that's not what they had. So I think that was a really good showing from Southern Utah. I think they definitely needed that, especially at home, because they have 2 road games next week, which are not going to be easy. They have struggled at Burns Arena because it's not an easy place to play when those 2 teams are squaring off.
Right.
And then you've got GCU on Saturday, which is the toughest place to play in the conference. So definitely important to get that win. It feels like, on both the men's and women's side for Southern Utah, who beat UTRGV over in Edinburgh. It feels like today for SU was a stabilizing day, that it was one of those, okay, held serve, won the game that you needed to win. You know, the men did so in more dominant fashion than the women, but the result's the same at the end of the day. And it's what they were looking for. And it feels like both, you know, needed that win to kind of hold serve and just stay steady as it pertains to making it inside the top 8.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at it like they're going with a 20-point lead at halftime, and they just kind of coasted or cruised to the win in the second half. Yeah, it got, what was it, within 12 or 13 or something there late.
I don't think they got within. I think they got within 16 maybe. I think it got to 14 once, and then Southern Utah scored the next 4 points, and it was over again.
Yeah, and then Dom Ford hits a fadeaway 3-pointer to kind of put the icing on the cake. Man, those pigtails though that come out, I don't know what you call them. Like, it's awesome. It's awesome. And they got Chaz Hutchinson playing, you know, more minutes too, which is big because they need some size. Parsifal has been back this week after missing the road trip, you know, to Texas. So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I think Hutchison giving them good minutes off the bench is huge. I think it's huge because he gives you something at both ends of the floor, and he's someone who scores without needing to touch the ball. And what I mean by that is he just runs and cuts to open space. His timing on baseline dives to catch a feed off a guy who's drawn his defender is pretty exquisite. It's really, really good, and that's how he gets basically all of his points. They don't do one-on-one post touches with him. He doesn't do a ton of pick and roll. He's the baseline guy. If you think of those old school Warriors sets, I'm sure they still run the same stuff, but like Andre Iguodala was the guy who just kind of ran the baseline while Draymond Green worked the pick and roll. He's the Andre Iguodala in those sets, and he's really good. 6'9", athletic. He blocked a shot tonight, had some great defensive sequences, rebounded well. I think his contributions are really, really big for this team, and it's why, you know, part of the reason why they've, you know, had more success in the last few weeks. It's hard to believe this was a team that was 0-5 in conference play once.
Yeah, they won 3 of 4, 2 on the road. And now, like you said, they go to Utah Tech on Thursday. I will be at Burns Arena. I know you said you will be, so we'll see you on Thursday.
Spencer, I got one last question for you before you go. In that race for the 8 on both sides, how many wins do you think it'll take to get in?
Ooh, good question. I got asked this earlier today.
I would think 7 is the bare minimum. I think that's a baseline standard. You know, you've got 6? No, it should be 5 games left in February now, 5 or 6, and you've got I think 7 or 8 games left total, and everybody's sitting at 4 wins. I think that's a great question to ask and a great way to look at it. I have a hard time believing 2 of those teams won't win at least 3 games. They all play each other too. So Southern Utah plays Utah Tech on Thursday. That's just a huge game for so many reasons. And then Utah Valley comes to Cedar City on February 15th. That's a huge game as well. Utah Tech plays SU. I want to say Utah Tech's got UVU one more time.
No, they're done. They split the series this year.
Okay. So they've already got the split, but still, yep. I think 7 minimum, and I think if you get to 9 conference wins, you're in.
Yeah,
you're in. But I bet you'll have one team maybe of those 3 that gets to 9, and I bet you the other 2 are at 7 or 8, and it could come down to, you know, head-to-head tiebreakers and everything like that. I think it's going to be wildly fun. I mean, once you get past January, every game is just so big. Like, in the grand scheme of things, they all matter the same. But, you know, there's a law of averages component of, like, you got to play a certain number of games, let the chips fall where they may, and see where everything and everybody kind of shakes out. And this is where these teams are shaking out. And those 2 in-state games, you know, Utah Tech, because it's a rivalry and you beat them before, that's a winnable game for sure. And then Utah Valley, a team that they played close for about, 34 minutes, and then they pulled away at the end to make it look like a 16-point game when it wasn't. Those are both games that if Southern Utah wins, they'll be in a really good position because they've got UTRGV again. They beat Tarleton and Abilene on the road. They're going to get them at home. Now, those are not easy games to win. Tarleton's playing some good basketball. They beat SFA. But I think that SCU with this win has, like I said, stabilized themselves, and they're in a good position to control their own destiny. Because where you don't want to be is we need to win and we need so-and-so to win. But right now, entering this final stretch, the final 4 or 5 weeks of the regular season, each of these 3 teams, Utah Tech, Utah Valley, Southern Utah, control their own destiny to get to WAC Vegas. And every game heightens the importance of being able to maintain that status.
It's a great thought.
Same thought process on the women's side, 8-9.
Yeah,
wins.
let me I was talking about the men's standings all day today, not the women's standings. So let me just pull them up real quick.
They're about the same as the men. They're about the same as the men, Spencer.
Okay. Well, let me just pull them up in front of me here. So, oh yeah, they're all.
Yeah,
Oh, that's men's basketball.
They have 3 teams that are 3-8, and Abilene Christian and Southern Utah. Abilene Christian's 4-6, and Southern Utah's 4-7. So it's all right there too. So I think 7 on both sides is going to be the key to get to WAC Vegas.
Yeah. Again, I think 7 wins is kind of your baseline there. The interesting thing is Southern Utah's at 4-7, and they're alone in what is that 7th place? Is my math correct? Yeah, they're alone in 7th place right now, whereas 4-7 is a tie for 7th on the other side. So I think that's the biggest difference.
Yep.
But for Tracy Mason and company, I don't think 6 wins would be enough in conference play. I think 7's the minimum you need to get in, and they too are capable of doing that, because they should have a little bit more of a home-friendly schedule over the next couple of weeks. They too play Utah Tech here at the AFEC on Thursday, and that's just massively big game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Spence, we'll let you get back to your evening.
Yeah.
Go home, get some rest up that voice, buddy, because you got a radio call next Thursday night. And
Thursday, yep. Time to start getting ready for it. I'll just say this entire discussion I find to be fascinating, number 1, and number 2 is why I'm staunchly in favor of all sports that are non-football, because that's different, making it the top 8 teams go to the conference tournament, right? Because think about it, if everybody made the conference tournament, would this feel as important right now? Would it be as urgent? No. I think it makes these games so much more exciting for fans and media people like me and you guys. Like, I think it's great, and I'm glad that the league has done that, and I think it's going to be really fun to watch play out over the next couple of weeks. Yeah,
it's going to be very interesting, and like you said, even with the resume seeding system, it makes the regular season that much more important. Yes. Every game in it, so that's a bonus. But yeah, it'll be a very interesting race, like we were talking about earlier. It's going to be interesting to the fact we're not even going to talk about the top teams in the WAC. It's all going to be about who gets into WAC Vegas over the next couple of weeks. So,
well, because once you get there, you get seeded, because it's standings first, then the seeding. As for who gets there, you get reseeded if need be based on the resume seeding system. Shout out to Eric Danner at the WAC for correcting me, because I had that wrong a few games ago, and he sent an email being like, "Hey, just so you know, Spencer's wrong." Which, who doesn't want a chance to tell me that I'm wrong? Like, let's be real. But I think that it's great the way this has all been set up, and I think it's going to be a fun finish. But I'll leave you guys to it. Thanks for having me on. Go T-Birds.
All right, thanks, Spence. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Yeah,
have a good night, Spencer.
Bye.
All right, everybody, we're going to take a 30-second break and come back to just recap a few other games on a busy day of WAC Hoops. So stick with us.
WAC Vegas is back. The best fans, championship basketball, all in exciting Las Vegas. Join us March 13th through the 16th at the Orleans Arena for the 2024 Hercules Tires WAC Basketball Tournament. Don't miss the crowning of a men's and women's champion. For more information, go to wacsports.com/WAC Vegas.
Is it crazy to think that WAC Vegas is like a month away, like a little over a month away?
I mean, it's gone. This year's gone by quick.
It has gone by quick. I mean, we are, what is it? Today's the February 3rd. WAC Vegas starts on March 12th? No, not 12th.
Wednesday. The Wednesday of that week.
What is that? March 13th. So we are 26, 30, less than 40 days away from WAC Vegas. Goodness gracious. That is crazy. Anybody else out there thinking it's going crazy? We got a comment. I believe I'm going to say this is Olivia Lane's dad. Chuck Lane checking in. Olivia Lane, even being banged up, she still gets it done for GC. Well, she still gets done, but she used to playing with pain. What grit. GCU is loaded, and you can tell they all play together. They are loaded. That's why they're at the top of the WAC right now, Chuck. Molly Miller's crew playing really well. They had another win over, and the scary thing with them is, and you can attest to this, Daryl, that they have to, I feel like they have to get off to better starts. Their starts haven't been great. They had a good one the other night. Who was that against?
Seattle.
It was the UT Arlington game where they came out crazy
last Saturday, yeah.
Game. Yeah, last Saturday, and they just blew out UT Arlington. Like, it was never even close. But then tonight or today, you battle with Utah Valley, and they're in the ball game until the fourth quarter. I mean, good teams win, find ways to win, but somehow, some way, that's going to catch up to somebody where they have to get off to a better start, right? I mean, that's got to be a concern, even though, like I said, they got the win today over Utah Valley to stay atop the WAC standings.
Yeah, and I mean, Utah Valley is playing some pretty good basketball this week, even though they lost both games. They hung around with SFA on Thursday night for a large stretch of the game. From what I was able to see, I was at a high school game, but following Twitter and the scoring monitor.
Yeah.
And then today, that Utah Valley again battled.
Yeah.
The bottom, no win in this conference is easy, and with a 1-game lead, one slip up can jumble up the whole picture of what we thought it would 2 weeks from today will mean.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I just, it's a good thought that GCU is one of the better teams, and we're going to see February 17th. And I know there's games before that for both the Lancers and the Lopes, but that February 17th game in 2 weeks from today is looming large. Like, it is huge. If we're talking about, regular season title, I'm sorry, I'm talking a little bit softer. My kid just went to bed. Forgive me. He has a little bit of a headache, so I'm trying to talk a little softer here. But yeah, and we're getting ahead of ourselves because, GCU still has to play Southern Utah next week, right? I believe they have Thursday off, so they play Saturday against Southern Utah. I think it's at Southern Utah too. That's in Cedar City. And then I'm not sure who they have the following week before that CBU game. I'm going to assume it's Seattle.
No, they're done with Seattle.
Okay, so on the women's side, it will be.
Let me pull it up here.
On the 15th, they will play. They host Utah Tech, so that's not a gimme either. So, wow, that's a pretty brutal stretch for the Lopes to host Utah Tech and to play at CBU. Like, that's going to be a challenge. So the top teams are going to get challenged here over the next couple of weeks. It's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, I think you have the men's master up. CBU is back-to-back.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. So Thursday, it would be Grand Canyon at Utah Tech. The 15th, Grand Canyon at Utah Tech on the women's side.
And then they make that trip
Grand
south
Canyon
on
at
Saturday.
CBU. So I apologize about that. Yeah, I was looking for it's just the opposite for both. So my apologies there. Oh, anybody else out there right now listening, chiming in? Send us a comment that you want us to, a question maybe that you have that you want us to answer. One team we haven't talked about yet, Daryl, is the Tarleton Texans men's basketball team. Okay, they just beat SFA today. Played well down the stretch to pull away. They won 75-64. Lou Williams, who went for 25 on Thursday, went for 27 tonight in that win. They were 7 of 10 from three-point range in the second half. This is a team that not a lot of people talk about, but they are right now, after the CBU loss, they are all alone in second place in the WAC standings.
And when Billy Gillespie went out on leave, who would have thought that being a possibility? But whatever the equivalent award is to the Mackie Dixon Award for a rookie head coach on the women's side, I don't know what the equivalent is on the men's side. Joseph Jones has got to be getting consideration for that award.
Yeah, I mean, they are 8-3 in WAC play right now, 15-7 overall. They've won 3 in a row. They've won 7 of 10. And along with being second in the WAC standings, they're also second in the WAC resume seeding. And I don't want to say it's by a significant amount, but it's by a good amount right now with, what is that, 7 games to play.
Have they played 13 games already?
They've played 11 conference games, so there's 8. Oh no, there's 20 games. Golly, what am I smoking?
So they got 9 games to go. I'm
still used to the whole 18 game thing. So yeah, they still got 9 to go. GCU has 8 to go. So I mean, yeah, it's this Tarleton team though with Ja'Cory Smith, who hit a 3-pointer to send the game to overtime against Abilene Christian on last Saturday, where they won it in overtime, and then. Lou Williams has been really good this week. And then they won at UTRGV when I was down there, and they were down by like 20 points at one point and came back and won that game. This is a team that, they got blown out by CBU. They got blown out by GCU on the road, and then they come back and they've won, 3 straight since then. So, yeah, I mean, they had the weird loss to Southern Utah at home last week or 2 weeks ago. But this is a team you better pay attention to. They get after you. Devin Barnes is a really good point guard. Keandre Gaddy is one of the better bigs in the league. Like I said, Lou Williams, Ja'Cory Smith. I mean, it's just Joseph Jones has done a tremendous job since taking over. One, he was the interim coach when Billy Gillespie went out with a medical circumstance. And then he became the acting head coach, in December. So, yeah, it's a he missed. And New Mexico State's going to escape. Sorry, guys, I was watching the end of this New Mexico State-Jacksonville State game. Crazy.
I feel like, Kyle, you talk about Tarleton and, the mid-major talk nationally. I feel like they might be the best story nationally when it comes to mid-majors that nobody's talking about.
Well, yeah, because they're not eligible for the NCAA tournament. That's a big thing. Now, Alan Easterling just showed us this. Let's look at this. Tarleton next 4. Look at this. At UVU, at Seattle, at UTA, and versus Grand Canyon at home in Stephenville at Wisdom Gym. That is a brutal stretch. Look at that.
You could go 0-4 or 4-0 or
0-4. If you go 4-0 on this trip, holy cow. But I mean, that's brutal. Here's the thing, and this is a scheduling thing, and I shouldn't talk about this right now. This is going to be a whole nother episode. Ooh, Jason Hooten and the Jacksonville State coach getting into it right now. Maybe not. Oh, they were hugging. I thought they were getting into it. It looked like they were yelling at each other. They're talking to each other. It's just a passionate thing. Uh-oh. Yeah, they hugged. I don't know what that was. That's crazy. Sorry, guys. I was just watching that. I'll have to ask my Aggie friends what that was all about. So, yeah, that's a brutal stretch, though. I mean, here's the thing with the scheduling. And maybe I'll get clarification, if somebody's watching this. But why are we playing like GCU? Today was their 4th road game in their last 5 games. Why is that happening? Why does Tarleton have to go on the road for 3 straight instead of being able to play home one weekend and home the next week, or home one weekend and on the road the next weekend, and then flip it every other weekend, right?
Wasn't the general idea when they went to double round robin to trade off home and away weekends?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. But, I don't know how the scheduling works. I'll have to get clarification on that. It's just really weird. I don't think a team should be playing 4 games on the road and 4 of 5 games on the road. The other thing I don't like is that, like, UVU had to go to SFA, and then they had to come back on short notice, quick turnaround on an afternoon game to play the top team in the league. Seattle U had to do that same thing a couple weeks ago. Utah Tech's had to do it. Like, I'm pretty sure every team in the WAC has had to do it. it's kind of weird. It's kind of strange. So I'll have to get clarification on that. But brutal stretch for Tarleton coming up. We're going to see how good the Texans really are over the next 2 weeks at UVU. I won't be there for that on Thursday because I'll be in St. George. I've already seen the Texans in person twice. They're 1-1 in those games. So a fun night of WAC hoops. We got another comment here. Chuck Lane. Guys, is CBU as deep as GCU on the women's side? CBU has a couple big scores. It's good to see GCU has multiple scores and thoughts on their big bench. Thanks, guys. Fun to listen to. Thanks, Chuck, for tuning in. I don't think, and Daryl can answer this better than I can, I don't know that CBU is as deep as GCU is on the women's side. I just know that Jared Olson lets his girls play, his team play, and gets the most out of them by doing that. Like, he trusts them to make decisions and so forth. And, they play with pace, which that'll be interesting, the conflicting pace styles between the Lopes and the Lancers when they do meet. I don't know necessarily that depth will come into play in that game just because CBU is built to play a lot of minutes with the way that they play. Right, Daryl?
Yeah. I mean, I think in certain spots, maybe. I mean, I think GCU might have a little bit more depth in the post, with Olivia Lane, and with Grace Schmidt out for the year. But again, I go back to the SFA game. I thought that was going to be a big issue. Kirsten Harden, Trinity Moore versus those CBU posts, and it really wasn't. Emily Sewell, Kinsley Barrington, Nook Bosch Duran held their own down low. And I think, Kyle, I go back to what you said. I think it's going to be, what kind of game do we get? Yeah. Do we get a game that's played in the 50s and 60s, or do we get a game that's played in the 70s and 80s?
Yeah, I think if it's in the 50s, it's going to be advantage GCU. If it's in the 60s and 70s, that's advantage CBU. I just think that Jared Olson wants to get teams into a track race because he knows what he's got on his side, and that's a thing that'll take away from the size that GCU has. So we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks when we get ready to preview that ball game. But to answer your question, Chuck, I don't think CBU has as much depth as GCU, but the way that the Lancers play, I'm not sure that that's going to come into play. It may with foul trouble and stuff like that, so we'll see. But yeah, it'd be tough to say that that's true if if Grace Schmidt wasn't out, and we'll see if Chloe Lemon's back for CBU too. That could be a big, come into play when they meet. So we'll preview that game in 2 weeks when it happens. We're going to take a quick 30-second break. Then I'll come back and answer your question, Alan, about my pennants.
WAC Vegas is back. The best fans, championship basketball, all in exciting Las Vegas. Join us March 13th through the 16th at the Orleans Arena for the 2024 Hercules Tires WAC Basketball Tournament. Don't miss the crowning of a men's and women's champion. For more information, go to wacsports.com/WACVegas.
And like we said, 39 days until tip-off of the 2024 WAC tournament at Orleans Arena. If you're looking for tickets, I know that they have their own ticket thing with Ticket Smarter. But if you want to go to SeatGeek too, I don't know if they're out yet, but you can use WAC Hoops Nation as your promo code on your first purchase and get $20 off of your first purchase of $50 or more. So WAC Hoops Nation on SeatGeek. If you want to get tickets to WAC Vegas or any tickets for any event, WAC Hoops Nation, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Anyways, Alan, back to your question. Where's the Tarleton pennant? As you can see, everybody, I have California Baptist is over here. It's out of the picture right now. Utah Tech, Abilene Christian, Grand Canyon, Utah Valley, UTA, RGV, and SFA is over here too. I'm going to be getting the other three in the next couple weeks, so just relax. It'll be there the next time you do. Not the next time you see us on a live stream, but it'll be there before the season's over. I promise you, Alan. I have been working on getting them together. when I was down there at Tarleton, their store didn't have any that I liked, so I didn't buy one when I was there. So I will be getting more. Anyway, great question, by the way. Daryl, any last thoughts on the day, on the Saturday of WAC Hoops, and what you're looking forward to in the coming week?
I mean, when you look at next week on the WAC schedule, you have to look at that CBU Utah Tech women's game. I know everybody's looking ahead to CBU GCU in 2 weeks, but to first get to that game, we have to look at that CBU Utah Tech matchup.
Yeah.
I mean, the two teams put up 150 some odd points in St. George and hit 20 some odd threes. So,
yeah.
I mean, what more can you say about that matchup?
Yeah, that's going to be a barn burner for sure. For sure. I'm looking forward to Southern Utah at Utah Tech on Thursday. I have not been to a game at Burns Arena since Utah Tech joined the league, so I feel bad about that. So I'm excited to be there for a rivalry game too. The last time I watched a basketball game in Burns Arena, 2021, I think it was the Region 18 or the SWAC or something, whatever the conference was that Utah, they were Dixie State at the time as a JUCO, whatever conference they were in. It was a conference tournament. They were hosting the tournament and they were playing in the title game, I believe, against, or maybe it was a semifinal game against CSI, College of Southern Idaho. Marcus Banks and Jaime Laredo were playing there. Marcus Banks went on to UNLV. CSI was really good. That was the last time I watched the game in Burns Arena. So I'm excited to be back. It's going to be a rocking atmosphere on Thursday. I'm excited to see what Tarleton does on this road trip to Utah Valley, to Seattle. Tough place to play. And Amanda, it's nice that Mandy is checking in here. SFA hosting UTA next Saturday. Avery Brittingham's returned to the Sawmill. And SFA looking to split the series. What do you all think about that matchup? What do y'all? I want to say y'all. Is that how it says? Y'all?
Yep.
Somebody comment on that. Did I say it right? Y'all? Oh, we'll see what the comments say when they come back. But Mandy, great question. Avery Brittingham's return to the Sawmill. That is wonder how that's going to be received.
I mean, I think you just take it for what it is. Transfers are a part of college basketball. It's going to be the same thing. You know, Trinity San Antonio and Sidney Palma's return to Riverside in 2 weeks. You take it as it is. You don't take it personal when kids leave, even if it is.
Do you though, Daryl?
Even within the conference.
Come on, we got to be real with that. There's a little bit of a we want to beat you mindset when that happens. Like, I can't say that there's not going to be some feelings there.
True, but SFA has to remember they have a lot to play for in that game.
Yeah,
they're one game behind GCU and CBU. Very nearly was 2 games behind, but that's another story for another night. That first GCU game in Phoenix, but I think Leonard Bishop will have them focused, ready to go. And I think we will get a very good basketball game.
Yeah.
I think the fact that UTA won at CPC by, what was it, near 20 the first time?
It was 9. Yeah, it was 18. It was 19. 81-62 back on January 6th.
Was quite honestly a little bit of a surprise. I thought UTA could win that game, but not by 19.
Yeah.
I think SFA does not lose in the Sawmill. So they're going to have to get one more win in the Sawmill to keep themselves in position for when they get to host GCU and CBU in the beginning of March, I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll talk more about that. We'll break those games down this next week as we get closer. Just that'll be interesting to have AB back at the Sawmill. First time back since transferring from SFA to UT Arlington. And, the thing is I don't think there'll be any hard feelings. She helped lead. She was part of the crew that went, I believe she was. Maybe I'm wrong. Wasn't she on that 2020 through 2022 team that went to the NCAA tournament? She was on that team. Yeah.
Yeah. The one that scared North Carolina.
Yeah. So it was just a change of scenery for this year. And I don't think there'll be any hard feelings. I think it'll be, just another game for both teams, really.
There might be some hugs at the beginning, but then let's get the show on the road.
Yeah. And Alan, you commented that yes, when I used y'all, it was correct. So I appreciate that. Appreciate everybody that's tuned in tonight. We're going to do this more on Thursdays and Saturdays. I think this is fantastic. I'm going to try and do it next Thursday or this upcoming Thursday. We'll see how I'm connected at Burns Arena. We may have to do it from Burns Arena on Thursday night. So everybody, make sure you follow WAC Hoops Nation on the socials, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever it's called, whatever you want to say it is. Make sure you subscribe to wachoopsnation.substack.com. Free subscriptions are there. If you're feeling generous, $4 a month or $40 per year. That's less than $4 a month if you do it for a yearly thing. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate all the interactions. We appreciate the following. It's great that we're continuing to build this nation, this WAC Hoops family nation, whatever you want to call it. And for Daryl, for myself, have a good rest of your weekend. Be safe. I know there's a lot of weather some places. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Straight Outta WAC After Hours show.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow WAC Hoops Nation on all your favorite social media platforms.